Welcome to Working for Women, the Independent Women's Forum podcast, where we are changing the conversation about women and public policy for the better.
Hi, I'm Julie Gunlock, Director of the Culture of Alarmism Project at the Independent Women's Forum, and your host for today's Working for Women podcast. This is the second podcast in a series I've been doing on the subject of reasonable moms and what it means to be a reasonable mom. The Independent Women's Forum will be hosting an event on October 19th in Washington, D.C. called Reasonable Moms Unite, how we push back on the culture that demands we worry about everything. If you're interested in attending the event, go to iwf.org and click on the events button at the top of the page. You'll find all the details there and can also RSVP. So today, I'm here talking to a good friend and a very reasonable mom, Coven Sinapathy. Coven, thanks for coming on.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for having me.
So Coven is a mom of two. She lives in Madison, Wisconsin. She is the co-executive director of the March Against Myths project. Coven, I'd love it if you could tell us a little bit about that. She's a public speaker, a Forbes contributor. She's a writer at Grounded Parents and all over the place. She writes and it's published all over. And she's the author of a terrific book, The Fear Babe, Shattering Vani Hari's Glass House. She can tell us a little bit about her book as well. So welcome, Coven, again, and maybe we can start off talking about what reasonableness means to you. I'm going to touch on an op-ed that I have in the Huffington Post this morning where I talk about that moms are characterized as, usually they're characterized as good moms and bad moms. I'm sure you saw the movie Bad Moms, which also kind of promoted that idea that you're either a good mom or a bad mom. And so in the Huffington Post this morning, I have this piece that it's a call for a new category, and that is reasonable moms. And I define that as moms who, they do their best. They don't obsess about labels or parenting advice. They like having time on their own. They don't want to be with their kids all the time. And they don't get too freaked out about a lot of the fear-based messaging out there. So I've always found you to be a reasonable mom, but tell me what that means to you.
Right. Well, it's something that I continue to learn. My kids are 5 and 3, so I guess I haven't been at it as long as other people, but everything you touched on is absolutely right. Being a reasonable mom means thinking critically, trying not to freak out or minimize the freaking out, especially when it comes to fear-based and fact-scarce messaging that we see on the internet and in the media. But also I'd add one more thing, and I'm sure, actually I know you agree with this, is to reduce the judgment that we place on other moms for not adhering to certain tenets of certain parenting ideologies. So all of those kind of come together to create this reasonable mom.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's such a good point. I'm glad you brought that up about sort of mom shaming. I think that shaming is something that happens sort of between two people. Like you can be talking to a mom and sort of, pass on a bit of judgment about maybe their parenting decisions or sort of gasp or feign surprise when they say that they do a certain thing or act in a certain way. But shaming has become, I would say, institutionalized. It's almost become common now among activist organizations and certain mommy bloggers to try to push women to do certain things, and not because it's really a better way to do it or to shop or to feed your kids, but because they're trying to guilt women by suggesting one way is better than the other. I mean, what kind of shaming do you see out there that's more organized by these activist organizations?
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, it's institutionalized, like you said. It used to be kind of one-on-one, but now it's everywhere. And it's also sort of commercialized depending where you look. I mean, marketers use this mom shaming all the time to sell their wares, whether it's organic or non-GMO food items to clothing or the best stroller, good moms use strollers that face a certain way or whatnot. But then, moms also judge each other. I think the institutionalized shaming and the commercialized shaming really women internalize it, and you see this all over the mom forums and the parenting forums. But I mean, it even has become part of how we see our bodies. You know, if we didn't birth a certain way or you know, without pain medication, then we didn't try hard enough, and it almost reduces us to our biology and almost an animal state. You know, we're modern women, we're intellectual, we have careers, and yet, you know, we're judging ourselves and others on whether we breastfed for a certain amount of time or gave birth in a certain way. It's kind of primitive, if you ask me.
It is primitive, and it's such a great segue into something I wanted to talk to you about. You and I write on very similar subjects. I heard someone describe you as I'm not going to say it right. They called you like a junk science fighter or a woo fighter. What was it they always say about it?
I see woo fighter a lot, and that's not just me, but there's a great group of women, like including us on the internet, that kind of combat this mom shaming,
it is a great community of women who politically may not agree on everything. I mean, I don't think you and I agree on sort of mandatory paid leave issues or like labor or taxation or healthcare. We probably have vastly different opinions on Obamacare. However, on these things like vaccines and the natural parenting trend and if organic is better and the GMO issue, certainly we agree. And so it's kind of nice to find those areas. But you wrote a really important piece. I want to mention it. I really want to encourage anyone listening to go and find it. It's on Forbes. Kevin is a contributor to Forbes. She has a ton of articles up on Forbes, as I mentioned, as well as other places. So check her out on Forbes. But this one is really touched me, really meant a lot to me. It was 3 ways that natural parenting movement dehumanizes women. You know, you talk about. I'm going to read a little bit here. It says, with early roots in attachment theory, initially based on primate research and observation of cultures in the developing world, those who follow natural parenting make appeals to vaguely non-Western traditions, whether or not these traditions are widely practiced or proven beneficial. Much of what people think is natural parenting isn't really what nature intended or what indigenous people did at all. Rather, it's the romanticized version of natural. Tell me a little bit more about this article. It's just a great piece, and what you think are the dangers of this trend.
Right. I mean, well, a lot of women think or believe, or those who lead this natural parenting movement will argue that natural parenting, and this is in quotes because, you know, what does natural parenting really mean? But they'll argue that natural parenting is feminist and it empowers women, but it really kind of reduces us again to our biology. And we might as well not even call it natural parenting. It's natural mothering, because most of this falls on the mom, not on the dad or you know, the female parent. And so this article highlights 3 ways, although there are so many other ways, that natural parenting actually dehumanizes women. Now, that's not to say that any of these practices aren't valuable or worthwhile. I mean, if you want to give birth without an epidural or naturally, then by all means have at it. Although I would argue against giving birth at home, you know, or out in the wilderness. Or, you know, or if you choose to breastfeed, that's great. I mean, I breastfed my kids. But when these become tenets or demands, and if you don't do these things, you're a bad mom, and even more so, you're not a real woman. I mean, you see that come up a lot. Then that's when you get into this dehumanizing of women territory.
Yeah, it really is interesting, and you know, Kevin kind of was saying, I wouldn't suggest giving birth at home or out in the wilderness, and seems like a joke, but there actually was a Daily Mail article a couple of months ago about a woman who gave birth in a stream because she wanted to be closer to nature. So people do take people do take these trends to extremes. And more you know, sort of closer to home or something that we all see is the idea of the natural. I actually went to a natural moms conference this weekend, and I posted an article about it and met a mom who is a natural mom. She considers herself a proponent of sort of natural parenting. we had a very good interaction. It was interesting to talk to her and find common ground. But I will say what I saw at that conference deeply disturbed me. There was a vendor area where I walked around and listened to sort of the sales pitches of these of these vendors, and it was the typical, if it's not organic, it's going to harm your child. If it has GMOs, it's going to harm your child. I had one conversation with a woman who makes crackers who told me that the reason people are having problems with gluten intolerance is because GMO wheat. You and I both know GMO wheat is not in the marketplace. So the misinformation, the bad science, just junk that was being promoted to these women who all have mommy blogs and are all going to go home. And this is the other interesting thing, Kevin, and I want to talk to you about this because I know you and I have both been accused of sort of being shills. And if listeners don't understand that, it's sort of the term means paid to say what you say. And I'm sitting there at this Natural Moms event, and all these vendors are giving away these food products, and these moms are saying, hey, you should advertise on my blog. You rarely get people accused on the natural side of things, organic side of things, accused of this. And here I am. I saw this happening before my eyes, where moms were trying to get these companies to advertise on their blogs, and for that they would give a good review of the product. So kind of interesting to witness that on the other side. I'm sure you've been accused of that as well.
Oh yeah, I'm accused of it usually at least once a day. Now, I think it's important that we make the point, and I know you agree, that number one, all these, the majority of these products, I'm sure I wasn't there, but the products touting themselves as natural aren't even natural. I mean, these aren't like the indigenous, that thousands of year old kind of way that people used to eat. These are packaged organic crackers. But the shilling thing is very interesting because while I'm paid for my writing for the outlets that I write for, I'm certainly not paid to express the thoughts or facts that I express. And so this double standard is mind-boggling, where especially this organic movement, these mommy bloggers are clearly in cahoots with these companies, whereas, I mean, no matter how many times I repeat it, I still get those shill accusations, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's frustrating. And honestly, I think some moms that were at this conference certainly truly believe in what they say. I don't think that they're just, I don't want to be sort of similar to the other side where I say, oh, they're just paid off to say these things. I mean, there's true belief there. But what's sad is that, and I think you and I have talked about this in the past, is that these demands that you buy very expensive organic food, and there's all these articles like how to buy organic on a budget, and I mean usually it involves sacrificing other things. You're a mom of 2 kids, and I know they're younger. Mine are a little bit older. I have 9, 8, and 6, and they're starting to get into sports. I mean, my gosh, the equipment and just the registration fees that I'm paying, it's just it's so expensive. And, I think about the moms who live at or under the poverty line. I do not live at or under the poverty line. I live above the poverty line, well above the poverty line, and I can shop at Whole Foods, although I choose not to. I can't shop every day at Whole Foods, but, I can go there. And I think about these moms who live at or under the poverty line, really struggling financially, have all these other demands, sports demands and activities, and they spend those scarce resources on organic food. That's where I don't care about the moms I see at pickup who might head off to Whole Foods to buy line-caught salmon. I care about the ones who are really struggling, hear these messages that they're harming their kids by buying conventional strawberries. Buy more expensive stuff. And I think it's really important. That's what the Reasonable Mom Project is. That's what the culture of alarmism is. That's what Coven does. What you do so effectively is taking the guilt out of these things and telling mom there are other choices. Women need choices, should have choices, and should have facts.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That point about women who aren't as privileged as we are and don't have our means, I mean, that's what really hits home for me. I also could afford to shop buy organic if I wanted to, and I'm accused all the time of secretly buying organic, which I don't. But but I wrote an article for Slate actually about a certain petition asking the government to allow SNAP benefits online, and the groups pushing for this petition are online marketers of organic fare. And there are so many people who use these SNAP benefits who are saying, "Oh, I wish I could buy these organic things online, but you don't take my benefits. I really want to feed my family healthy food, but it's just really hard on my low budget." And it was tragic. I mean, whether or not we believe that SNAP benefits are a good thing, I mean, it's sad when people who can't afford their basic needs are worried about the fact that they can't afford organic.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, Kevin, you are always a breath of fresh air, always such a reasonable person to talk to, and I'm so thrilled that you came on today to talk about being a reasonable mom. You are a reasonable mom. I know a lot of your followers are reasonable moms, and so we're just thrilled that you came on. I wish you could come to the event in Washington on the 19th. It'd be fun to see you, but we will have more events, and hopefully we can have you come speak at an IWF event soon.
Oh, yeah, I wish I could be there, too, because I know your events are awesome, and everyone listening should go, and I look forward to attending one soon.
As I always say, there's always free booze. It's very fun.
Yeah.
All right, well, listen, Kevin, again, thank you very much. Kevin, can you just quickly tell where people can find you, if there's your Twitter handle and some other information about where to find your writing?
Yeah, so again, I contribute a lot to Forbes as well as other outlets, but my Twitter handle is @KSenapathy, KSENAPATHY, and I also have a very dynamic and interesting, if you will, conversation on my public Facebook page, which is, you can just search my name, Kevin Senapathy.
She has a very cool picture of her wielding a sword of science. So she can't be missed. And like myself, Julie Gunlock, Kevin has a kind of a unique name. So I bet there aren't a lot of Kevin Senapathies out there. So you'll probably easily find her on Facebook. Listen, thanks again for coming on. This has been another edition of the Working for Women podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, or stop by IWF.org for similar content.